Welcome back, everyone. We're going to continue along, and this part is actually going to be a quick part. We are literally just going to be doing this guy here. I decided to sort of pin the other parts I was talking about at the end of the last section for a different section. We can take care of that maybe in the next part while we're wrapping things up. But right now, let's just focus on this middle guy. I want to make this part quick because I need to clean up my kitchen before going to bed. Really not the most exciting thing, but it doesn't really matter. Let's focus on this guy. Seeing as this one part should be pretty manageable for right now. This square here just has some cuts in it, multiple different places for bolts to be put down. It also seems to be bolted through, perhaps into this. Maybe we could work with that, who knows. We'll see once we get there. But essentially what this is doing is it goes all the way up, branches off into these areas. We have these little clips behind it, and we have that ribbon that goes through and connects into these guys. Now, one thing to note before we dive in is I slightly adjusted the positioning on these guys since the last video. All I really did was I brought them down a little bit and I made them a little bit larger, so they fill up the space a bit more. Just looking at my reference, they seemed a little bit off, and this seems to have solved that a bit. I didn't want to do it on camera because it was kind of finicky, but essentially all you have to do is, we've gone over this with other things, but say you want to move many things at once. Let's select all of them, and then with our cursor somewhere else, I can go to vertices, and then I essentially just like scaled or moved this down and scaled certain things that way. Yours might already be in a good position, but this is a good time to sort of double check your placement of everything. But anyways, let's actually get to this part, and we'll start with the actual like front part here. As far as size goes, it seems pretty appropriate. It's a little bit more rectangular, so I'm just going to pull it up a bit. And scale it out like so. Nice. I just want to make sure that this is actually centered. Seems to be good. One thing I do want to do first of all is thin it out to an appropriate size, so I actually have it level with everything here. Snap it so it's flush. Same with this. Just make it way thinner. This is a very thin piece of metal we're dealing with. What I want to do with this guy is essentially extrude him up. I want to wrap it around just like we did with the other thing, and then extrude it over. Something. What the heck is going on here? What? This is one face? Is there like an edge that was? What on earth happened? Okay, well these got ruined, so we're gonna have to take care of these really quickly first. It should be pretty quick. I'm just going to extrude this down. Yeah, that does it pretty quickly. Weird, at some point I guess that all messed up. But yeah, I'm just extruding that down. Doing a fill hole. And then I guess these have to get an edge going through it. And that'll solve those problems. Weird that that happened. I guess I must have messed something up in the last part. And duplicated it over anyways. Sorry about that. Don't mean to eat up your time with something like this. It'd be better if we could just dive directly into what we're supposed to be doing. Snap that down. Isolate this guy. Can fill hole. Okay, those guys are taken care of. But that's essentially how we're going to be setting up this. So let's just snap these guys to the end. extrude. I'm just holding shift like before to extrude, holding shift and dragging with the arrow. Doing it again here. So now we have that guy wrapped around. Nice. Do a little bit of basic cleanup. Snap that forward. Snap that edge up. Just to reduce poly count. Super easy. This is just a series of booleans. So boom, 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 boom. 2 circles there, a line going through them. It's a different part here, but we'll get to that part separately. Yeah, let's just sort of set some of these guys up. I also think the blue is very distracting. Let's just set it to gray for right now, and then we'll swap it out later. Yeah, okay. So, let's start by getting a cylinder in here. Just going to use this plugin to plop one in. So, just to be safe, I'm going to round these edges before we do any booleans, just so we don't have to sort of do that afterwards, and maybe with the extra edges from the boolean it might cause complications. So let's just get that over with now. It looks something akin to maybe 0.25. Yeah, that seems pretty good. And yeah, let's get this guy into position. So there's like one right above where it starts to curve. There's one underneath it. It's much smaller, centered underneath of it. There are then 2 above it. The size is kind of in the middle. One really close to the edge. And then one horizontal to it that's a little bit smaller. Kind of like so. I just want to space these a little bit more. And then what I'm going to do is just combine all these and mirror them over. So mesh combine. Let's see if we can just put the pivot in the middle here. We have a vertex on the mesh behind it, so I'm just kind of cheating and putting it there. Freeze transform, delete history, mirror over X, looking pretty good. And then we want one more cylinder for this cut here. So I'm just going to use this tool again because it's going to put it right in the middle. Just a tiny guy, kind of near the top. Like so. Nice. Let's go ahead and mesh combine these guys. I'm going to pull them all forward because I want to select these back vertices and squish them down so they're all even. And I don't want these puncturing all the way through, just kind of gently pressing in. Let's go ahead and freeze transform, delete history on these guys and open up the Boolean manager. New Boolean operation. See how far we can push these in before they break through. Something like that's fine. And then on the other side, technically you might be able to see like the bottom ones, but I'm not too worried about it because once we have the keys in, it's going to get so complicated back there you won't even notice. And if it really is going to bother me, we can just do it in Painter. Delete history and base objects. Let's go ahead and poke face all these guys just so we can easily put screws in there. I'm thinking if I should do that before adding these rectangular bools. I think it should be fine. Poke face might actually be better. And what I do want to do really quickly is turn down the ambient occlusion. So I'm going to renderer, opening up my settings and just turning down the AO. It was a bit much. So I know we have multiple types of screws here. I kind of want to find a couple different ones. For these small guys, I'm going to use these normal ones. So let's just kind of snap those into place. Giving everything a bit of a random rotation to it. I'm also going to use this guy for up here. I can't tell if anything's even screwed into these two, so I might just leave them the way they are. Let's put these guys here as well. Like so. Maybe push them in a little bit more. But then for these guys, I want to give them a different kind of bolt. So we've used this one where it's kind of like more of a flat head. I'm just going to use this guy. Of course, we got to make them red so we remember. But I kind of like it sticking out over top, like naturally like that. Like it's being screwed in and it would like stop there. So let's rotate these guys. Don't want it to be like too symmetrical. There we go. We definitely made these too big. Let me just scale it down a little bit more. Nuzzle it in there a little bit more comfortably. Okay. So now let's select this guy and isolate it. We have to add these sort of rectangular cuts through, which is super easy. We're just going to grab a cube. Just going to do another Boolean. So snapping this guy to the middle to have him centered. I'm sure you guys can all tell where this is going. Let's snap this back so it's level with the existing cuts. Make it a bit thinner. I'm just going to keep this line behind these edges, just in case there's some weird cleanup we'll have to do. I don't want it to kind of screw things over more than necessary. And then we can just take another one, rotate it, put it up here, give it the same treatment, just a lot skinnier. Combine all these guys. Go to freeze transform, delete history, and Boolean them like we did before. Nice. So if I turn off that, it's the same shape. I'm going to put wireframe back on. Nice. Now we're going to tackle the upper part where we have less clear reference, which is always fun. Get to leave some things to interpretation, but it's not like we're totally in the dark here. This is an interesting shot because it makes me see that this goes further back and then this part that sticks up is all kind of attached. So it kind of makes me want to do something like this, where I just like extrude it back further. What's the best way to do this? Let's start by first combining these screws, because they're never going to be on their own. Let's isolate these, and let's start thinking of a solution. I want to cut this all the way back. But on top of that, I think we should save the cut for the end and focus more on the part that's actually extruding up. So what's the best way to divide this? I'm going to add an edge here, add an edge here. Is that going to make these even? No, it doesn't necessarily seem like it. Okay, let's think of some problem solving here. Let's see. I'm going to take this guy, smart duplicate the face, because I just want to divide this up evenly so I can find a place to extrude from. Let's go ahead and delete these and delete these. And what I'm going to do is open up the Insert Edge Loop tool. You can find that under Mesh Tools, Insert Edge Loop, Control-Alt-E. And I'm going to put it on 2. I think having extra vertices is screwing me up here. There we go. So I know these are going to be evenly distributed. So now what I can do on this guy is go into my cut tool and just add cuts. And then if I straighten them out and snap them, I know it's going to be relative to the center. Perfect thirds. Nice. Then I can extrude up. But let's take a better look. It kind of seems like this goes back a bit further and then extrudes up, like it goes back and then up. So let's try and emulate that. I'm just adding cuts and then vertex snapping so I know they're even. And then from here, we can kind of extrude this back. Maybe do 30, 30. And then like extrude up. So we have some spacing that we can work with. And then we can adjust it as we want. But let's start with this. Bring it up. How high up are we talking here? I'm going to go look at this 3D model. Because what's making sense to me right now is that this would be as high as where the ribbon is feeding into. So I would make the top of this even with the top of this. This also has to be thinned out a great deal. Maybe about yay thin. Which means I'm going to have to clean up some more stuff back here. Just going to snap this back here. Snap that down there. Merge those vertices. Let's see, so this one has a cut all the way through. This one also seems to have a cut all the way through, so we can just continue this cut all the way along and up. This definitely seems a lot thicker than everything else. I'm going to pull that in a little bit, pull that in a little bit. Okay. Just going to pull it up a little bit more. Trying to get the size on this just right. And let's go for that sort of Boolean cut all the way through. In the 3D model, it's interpreted as like an actual cut all the way through. And this one, it also seems like a cut all the way through. So we're going to actually cut this guy clean in half, and then there's a bolt in the middle sort of keeping it together from what I can tell. So let's go for that with a create polygon primitives cube. We're going to mimic the size down here. So I'm just snapping up here, and then I'm going to push this all the way through, and this all the way up. I might even give it a bit more width. Just not puncturing these, and if I do, maybe go overboard. But I don't want to, something like that. Freeze, transform, delete history on everything. New Boolean operation. Clean up, delete history and base objects. So this would still work, this could still function, but there is a screw going through it and all the references, and I do kind of like just more detail and more like parts, just anything that adds more interest. I like this shape in general. You have the big shape, you have the medium-sized shape, and all these small shapes, and this medium-sized shape is kind of missing a small piece in there, so I think it'd be nice to add one. Let's go ahead and add a cylinder. Rotate it a bit. Skinny it out, and let's say we're going to want the screw. Let's just have it level with this bar back here in case we want to stick it into something. I guess I could technically go into that. Freeze transforms, delete history. Make it a bit bigger. Boolean, new Boolean operation, clean up, delete history and base objects. Just borrow one of these guys. Snap it there. And snap it horizontally here. Just kind of have them chilling in the middle. And what we can do on the back end, just so it makes a bit more sense, is extrude this out to about here. Extrude again. Extrude, extrude, and fill hole. So it kind of makes sense, like it has a purpose. I guess in this sense, though, this would have to be forward more. Nice, so that's that. We do have these pieces coming out of the top. They seem to just be attached to either one of these. They should be relatively simple to make. Let's start with the one on the left. I'm actually just going to extrude. They seem about this thick. You can tell right about here they're not too thin, but essentially it's extruded out. This side stays the same. It's the inside that sort of tapers in. It's pretty much this, but with bevels. I'm going to do them one at a time. So let's bevel this guy. He only kind of needs something like that. This one is going to need something a lot tighter. And then maybe add an edge here just to keep a consistent smoothness. And then ZBrush will take care of the rest on that guy. Maybe add an edge kind of further along. That should be fine. Yep. And what I can do is, well, first of all, I just want to soften these edges. But what I'm going to do is just take these faces on the top. I'm going to use Smart Duplicate. Let's delete this face here. And mirror this guy, or scale it -1 along X. Snap him on top. We can combine these. Merge the vertices. And boom, that's that. All we have left to do on this guy is these sort of like back holders. And then the belt that's feeding through everything. And that's going to do it for this whole part. So let's see exactly how these are working. We don't have the clearest references on what these guys exactly look like. Like a top view isn't the best. It kind of seems like these sort of thicker parts, they come out, something coming up. I don't know exactly what's going on here. Maybe these are like wrapping around this. Screw. This interpretation's interesting. Let's take a look directly. So sort of like a back piece that goes around. I like how it has an opening here, so you can like slide a belt in like that as an actual like function to it. So I guess I'll be sticking with mainly that look. I have a bit of a better view here, but not really. But there's that opening, so I'm just going to be going off of that. There's also something to note. There's not the most room back here, so we're going to have to keep it pretty thin, but the reference is showing that it's a pretty thin thing to begin with, so it should be pretty easy. Let's start with a thin cube. Let's get our wireframe back, and if we put the pivot to a corner, we can snap it so it's flush. Center that guy out, scale it down. Kind of seems like these are starting above the bolt. Let's add a cut to the middle. And then you can bevel that. I'm doing that so we have two evenly spaced cuts. Scale it in a little bit. Push these forward. Maybe thicken the whole thing up a little bit. With these edges, I can scale them in so it's kind of rotated in. Might need to do that a little bit more. Take these guys, just the back edges, and push them forward. I'm doing that so that I can have these pieces here extruding up and be somewhat forward facing. Thicken that. These guys, if I duplicate it, they seem to be going all the way to the top. So I'm going to snap to the top and then bring them down a little bit. I don't want them all the way like perfectly even. Let's go ahead and stretch them out a little bit more. We'll connect these cube pieces here. And then what I'm actually going to do is scale these in a little bit because I want that space for the belt to sort of feed into. So let's go ahead and get a cube, create polygon primitives, cube. We can go ahead and do a poke face to get this guy perfectly snapped to the middle. Now that it's there, I'm going to go ahead and immediately delete that. But we know it's centered now, which is good. Scale it down. It's rotated into position. I'm going to move this or change this to object so I can just push it forward. That angle seems to be pretty spot on. Off by like decimal places. Snap this to this edge. If you want it to be perfect, you could smart duplicate the face and extrude that to get like a perfectly flush shape. I guess that probably would have been a better method, but this still works fine. I'm going to put this up above, extrude that out a little bit, thicken it up so there's that little gap for the belt to feed through. Actually going to push these back a little bit further so it's more clear. I kind of want this to extend even further down. So I'm sure you're probably going to guess this, but from here we can just mirror it over. Freeze transforms lead history, mirror along X. And we just got to get the belt through, and that'll do it for this part. I'm going to change this back to world just for convenience sake. But the belt, yeah, wraps around the back and then slots through into here. So it is super thin. There's a few ways that we could go about this. So if we were to just make it a plane, which is totally possible, we just have like a one polygon and just extrude it through. The drawback to that is we would then have to make our material double-sided because well, let me explain. I'll bring in a plane. So yeah, if we just like extrude along this like two-dimensional shape, it'll be great, but if you look at it from the back, it's all black here. This will be invisible once it's textured. So the solution to that is to make our texture double-sided, which will make it the same image on both sides. The drawback to that is the texture becomes way more expensive. We don't really need to worry about that for a prop like this. It's something to keep in mind. If we just extrude it out of like a cube though, and just have it be a really thin cube, we won't have to do that, but we'll add more polygons. In a case like this, 99% of the time I would say just do it with a cube because it's going to be cheaper. But I'm trying to think if there's any other cases on this model where we want a double-sided material. It doesn't really seem like we have anything like that. This is a little bit off, as well as this, probably from when I rescaled things, like I said. Yeah, I don't think there's any other cases where we'd want a double-sided model, or a double-sided texture on this model, rather. So for this, I'm just going to make it out of a cube. So create polygon primitives, cube. Squish it super thin. Trying to think of the logistics of this. So we have this back here. And then I'm just going to do half of it and then duplicate the rest because we really don't have to worry about it twice. It's just going to be a headache. So I'm just trying to understand this a little bit. It comes from the back. It goes through this part and around. Yeah, so like this. Rotate it a little bit. I'm just trying to think of this as the thickness I want. Like it's supposed to be thin. It's like a little belt. I think that should be fine. We can test it out either way. Let's feed this into where it's supposed to go. So it would be wrapping around. Part of me, just because of how this is, makes me want it to be a bit thicker. Like this is a super sloppy job, don't get me wrong, I'm very aware of that. But yeah, I want it to be thicker. Just because of how thick like these openings are, it would just look way too awkward. So let's undo that. Just thicken it up quite a bit. It's also occurred to me we're gonna have to change like the height and all that stuff as well. So let's get this guy like really tightly wrapped around. Could probably do this with curves in one way or another too, but I'm not gonna even like attempt that at this time. So let's just get this guy here and see how high it has to be. It's probably like better to be like down here. So let's have it rubbing the edge of this. Or does it go back here? No, it goes back here. Yeah, that's why we have this here. Which makes me want to have it thinner now. Oh my god. Okay, we got to make it thinner. Somewhere in the middle like that. Rotate. Does that look like it's going to fit through? Oh yeah, that should be fine. So does that weird being, like, look weird being on a downwards angle? I suppose I could keep it up. I think what I'm going to do instead is let's just lower this stuff. So we can keep the top how it is, but we can lower the bottom so it looks a little bit less awkward overall. I think that's fine. Let's grab that end piece again. I'm going to go to my scale tool, go to component, scale it in a little bit, change that back to world, and we can just rotate this around. It really doesn't have to be perfect because we can't really see it. We're going to just delete these faces anyways. Like in the final, so it really does not have to be perfect. And we're not even going to bring this part into ZBrush because there'd be no point. So we have this sticking out. We're missing a bolt here. Okay, the view of this is getting pretty annoying. Let's see. How does that feel? I feel like I want this whole thing for this side to be like down here. And then I could shrink this. Like something like that seems better. It's all feeding through evenly. Does this look weird to have it like this? Like on a downward angle? I guess it does, yeah. Maybe I shouldn't have lowered all this. God damn it. No, it's fine. If I lower this down to like here, all I really have to do is lower this and lower this. And that's still totally fine. And soften these edges so it's more like a proper belt. Just going through. This part seems unnatural. I kind of feel like it should be rotated. Okay, I'm really gonna have to isolate some parts here. Let's do something like that. That is way better. See what's going through, wrapping and going through this side? I feel like it should be like one continuously smooth motion. I'd kind of like if we opened it up a little bit more. Why did I do that? Let's cut across. Grab these edges, squish them, snap to here, do the same thing on this side. Snap that down. So where would we want this to come out of? Probably right about here. So we can kill this off a little bit sooner. Like if I bridge this, and then we could get rid of that, get rid of that. Goes through much tighter wraparound. Get rid of that. And then just sort of like, if that makes sense, like a tight wrap. Yeah, like much more tension. Okay, I'm liking that a lot more. This, we can kill it off right here because we will never ever see a camera angle looking down directly at that. So that is fine. Let's go ahead and clean this part up a little bit more because we did some damage to it. It should be quick. We're just bridging. Wait, are we doing that? No, we are not. We bridged this one, which means we need to keep it open, right? So what we're actually doing is bridging this up, bridging this across, bridging that. Let's start welding things or merging vertices. Can extrude down, merge that so we get a little triangle, snap it, merge. If I check, that should make sense now. Yeah. I'm just gonna pull that in a little bit to solve our problems. We're missing a screw here. It's gonna bother me. Let's duplicate this guy and snap this over. Much better. Nice. So it is definitely like on a downward angle a little bit, but that's totally okay. Let's actually, we can afford to make it a bit taller now. I feel like the bigger this thing, the better. So I'm just grabbing these top faces and seeing how badly we can sort of push the verticality. So obviously I brought this part down quite a bit. So let's just bring it to the top of that. I think I'm going to push it further. I think I'm going to put it right about there. Bring this up a little bit. Bring these up a little bit. Because I want this to be big. This is a big part of everything, is this belt. Then to sort of fix that, obviously we're going to have to grab these guys, pull them up. That takes 2 seconds. Whoa, what's going on here? I guess we have to clean this up. So snap this down to here, just making sure it's all level. Merge all of that. And then, just like we did before, extrude, merge that edge, snap it, merge vertices. Nice. Can bring the screw up, can bring the sort of roller, snap it to the top. Okay, that's looking about how I'd like it to look, except for this. I'm going to need to grab these top parts. And the reason I need to do that is to hide the ribbon a bit by pulling it up, tucking it in there, and that's that. All we're going to have to do is sort of duplicate all this to the other side. I'm going to start with this. Freeze transforms, mirror over X. Merge those guys. And then what I can do, which would probably be the fastest thing, would be just delete that. Delete, delete, delete. Delete, delete. And then just like duplicate those ones over. So I'm just putting the pivot to the center of the grid, holding X to grid snap. Mirror X. What else did we delete? These like internal pieces, but these might just be easier to manually just bring over because there's 3 of them. So duplicating, moving over. Oh, we're just straight up missing this part. Suppose I should oh, this one doesn't even have it at all. That's the issue. Okay, let's bring this part over. There we go. Now the ribbon's actually feeding into something. And then, yeah, we'll manually just duplicate and bring these guys over. Give them a weird rotation. I think that's it. I think that's it for this part. One thing I want to do just for aesthetic purposes, and just to sort of make it a bit more visually pleasing, and let's go ahead and this is obviously super placeholder, but we can make the top black and make the bottom red. Nice, looking clean. We can make this part, it can be one of the yellows or green. I'm liking green. Yeah, now we have the belt weaving through. Nice. So that took a little bit longer than I thought, but we got it all done. Very happy with how that turned out. We can get those little knick-knack pieces that I was talking about, like the guy that goes right here. Maybe we can tick off a few of those in the next part. And then it's all hands on deck for the keyboard. Everything is starting to click and make sense. Very happy with this guy. Thank you guys for watching. We've got some cool looking stuff in the front now. Yeah, I will catch you guys in the next part. Take care. See ya.